Welcome back to another episode here. Talking sports with Brandon. Week two of the NFL just finished up. As I'm recording this, it's Tuesday, so we had two Monday night games last night, which I actually really like, to be honest. Usually it's just one Monday night game. I know in years past they've done the first week of the season it would be two Monday night games, but usually it would be a game at like 7:30, then the other one would be at like 10 o'clock. But last night, Monday night, week two, it was a game at 7:15 and a game at 8:30. So you kind of had both games going at once, so you could flip between them. It wasn't they didn't start at the same time, obviously. So one game was kind of towards the end of the second quarter, while the other one was still kind of starting up. So it's like you kind of got different aspects of the game. Now, if the games were closer, maybe they would have been better to watch. But I thought it was actually pretty fun. I think they are doing that this year. Because I know ESPN I think they had a right to more games. I don't know if that was this year or next year. I thought it was this year, but I think they will maybe do that a couple more times. Maybe not. I'm not exactly sure, but I thought I read that somewhere that they will have a couple more doubleheader Monday night games. Like I said, I think that was a good idea. And they had two good games last night. The outcomes, weren't what it didn't turn out to be a great game, but on paper, I thought those were actually pretty good matchups. It just didn't turn out that way, but that happens obviously. But that was a good ending to the week. I thought week two was a great week in the NFL. A lot of obviously the big story of week two was just the comebacks and the chokes from certain teams, as we saw three huge comebacks play out on Sunday. Involving the Cardinals, Raiders, the Jets, and the Browns, and then the Ravens and the Dolphins. So we had those three amazing comebacks. We had a couple other good games throughout the week. Still, some maybe not the most exciting games, but still games that did come down to the wire and were closer out. So it definitely was a pretty good week, and we even got a couple upsets as well. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to talking about these games. I do remember from the last episode that I had a couple games I wanted to look out for, and I thought were going to be really interesting games and really exciting games, and I thought those turned out to be true. To be honest, one of those was that Ravens Dolphins game. I That was the one I was looking forward to. I thought that was a good matchup, especially for the Dolphins, but even for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, which at one point in that game it looked like it was going to be a blowout, but then obviously we know how it turned out. So yeah, that was a really exciting game, and that was a really good like prove it game for the Dolphins. They really needed that because going to this season, I kind of had them as they could probably get up to 10 wins, maybe 9 or 10 wins, but could they really fight for a playoff spot? I don't think so because I don't have trust in the quarterback, and I think the team around him is pretty good, and they have obviously have weapons offensively, and the defense is still solid, but I just if you don't have that kind of quarterback to take you the whole way, I don't think you can really win as many games as that you need in the AFC in order to get to a playoff spot. So I thought that was a big test for him, and I mean he had so far. I know it's early in the season, but that's easily the best performance we've had from a quarterback, maybe just anyone even in general so far in terms of numbers. He did throw two picks in that game, but even still, 6 touchdowns, 459 yards, led them down the field multiple times for touchdowns. So really impressed by him. Again, I'm not the biggest Tua fan, but I can't deny that that was a great performance against one of the better teams in the AFC. The Ravens are for sure going to be one of the best teams in the AFC when the season's over. As long as they can stay healthy, and then again, Lamar is not a quarterback I love either, but if he can play his best football in the playoffs, then they for sure have a shot at maybe getting to a Super Bowl. You still have that one tough team in the Bills there that you have to get by at some point, whether it's divisional or championship week. But like I said, going into this week, I thought this was a really big test, and they passed the test. Tua and the Dolphins definitely passed it. But the first game I want to start with was the Thursday night game, which I said this would be the most exciting game, on paper, and I said even when all the games were over, this would probably still be the best game. I guess technically it may not have been, even though it was still up there for sure, but I think you'd probably put that Ravens-Dolphins game as the most exciting. Maybe even in terms of just pure entertainment value, you could probably say the Bills game, even though it was a blowout. But just in terms of entertainment and watching that game and just seeing amazing plays happening, that was a really good game for that to happen. But Chargers Chiefs, Chiefs do win 27-24. I did pick the Chargers. I mean, I didn't pick, in terms of my 5 picks of the week, I didn't pick that game, but I would have picked the Chargers to win that game. I think I even said that last episode as well. But the Chiefs did win 27-24, like I said. And it really looked like the Chargers should have won this game, to be honest. I think they're going to kick themselves for this one. You know, it was kind of back and forth throughout the game, but it seemed like the Chargers kind of had, even though they were never up by a huge amount or anything, it just seemed like they kind of had control of the game. It just felt like it was the third game. They were up 10-0 at first, but again, that was so early in the game. I'm not going to count that as like blowing a lead or anything like that. It was basically still the first quarter when they went up 10-0, so I'm not going to say that, but it was 17-7 LA with 7 minutes and 22 seconds left in the third quarter. So you're already past the halfway mark. You're already driving down the field, at that point you're already driving down the field, and then 17-7, and then the Chiefs get the ball. They go 41-yard touchdown pass to Justin Watson. You would never even have heard of him before. So he gets a 41-yard touchdown pass. That's 17-14. Then the Chiefs get a field goal and make it 17-17. But even still at this point, there's 10:30 left in the fourth quarter. Chargers are driving down the field. I'll get to the exact spot they were at on the field. But I believe it was like the 2-yard line. I think it was 3-yard line. They're at the Chiefs' 3-yard line. Like I said, there's now 10 minutes, 29 seconds left in the fourth quarter, 17-17, and Herbert gets picked off. Not only does he get picked off, though, he gets returned for a touchdown. It's a pick six. Now it's 24-17 Chiefs. That was obviously the biggest change in the game, because you score a touchdown right there, 24-17. Now, the odds the Chiefs come back down and score a touchdown may be pretty likely, but who knows? You still have the lead. Maybe you cause a turnover for them. Get a stop, do whatever you have to do to just not let them score on that drive, even a field goal, if anything. But the interception, the pick six happens. Chargers get the ball right back, go basically 3 and out, or do go 3 and out. So they punt right away. At that point, the game was over. Chargers got a late touchdown to make it 27-24. They got that with 1 minute and 11 seconds left. But like I said, at that point, the interception's what killed them. And I thought Herbert played a really good game. I can't say he didn't play a good game, but you make one mistake against Mahomes, against the Chiefs in Kansas City, that's what's going to lose you that game, and obviously that was the case in this one. Again, the Chiefs, they're proving people wrong. I think people probably picked the Chargers to win this game, even though they were on the road at Kansas City. And even week 1, I think most people probably had Kansas City beating Arizona, but I think some people had some doubts about that. But they're 2-0. They honestly look as good as they've looked. I think the defense is still questions on that defense, but you definitely can't say anything bad about Kansas City so far. And with them already beating the Chargers, so they already have that advantage so far in the head-to-head. The Raiders being 0-2, and the Broncos, even though they're 1-1, they looked pretty awful these first 2 weeks. I think Kansas City has to feel really good about this division now. So the next time they do play LA, just to see possibly when that matchup would come, would be, where is it exactly? It's November 20th, so about 2 months from now. So at that point, the teams will look a lot different. We'll see what the records are then. It could be definitely a big game. It's not the end of the season, but it's definitely not only in a couple weeks, where even though it's the head-to-head matchup, it wouldn't mean as much, just because when it's at the end of the season, one team's 10-3, another's 9-4. That could be a huge game. And then obviously if the Chiefs win their next game, they have the tiebreaker over the Chargers, which I do believe will come down to those two teams to win the division. I do still have the Chargers winning the division. I'm not changing on that. I won't change on that the rest of the season. But, that's obviously a huge game. The Chargers have to win that game in order to win this division. Because it looks like the Chiefs, they'll be there. It definitely looks like they'll be right there. If not, or, having more wins than the Chargers, they'll at least be tied or 1 win below. So you definitely need that next game against them to win. Because if you don't win that, then the division probably may get out of hand, possibly, because the Chiefs, even though they kind of have their schedule coming up is kind of tough, but at the same time, maybe not. They face the Colts next week. They've been an embarrassment, to be honest. They got shut out to the Jaguars this week. That was one of my 5 picks. Not even close. They didn't even score a point. They go to Tampa to play the Bucks. That, may be a tough matchup, but again, at the same time, like, Tampa hasn't really looked that good so far this season. They still have injuries with their wide receivers. Now, maybe week 4, they're maybe Godwin's back, maybe Julio's back. Mike Evans is serving a 1-game suspension, but that's for this week. So maybe they'll have them back, at least 2 out of those 3 guys back. But even then, like, I don't think you really fear Tampa because their offense hasn't looked amazing. Now, the defense is still really good, but I think Kansas City is able to find ways to score points and, move the ball down the field against them. Then they're home to the Raiders. Raiders always play them tough, but it's usually in Las Vegas or Oakland that they played them tough, not really in Kansas City. So, that could maybe be an easy game. It's not easy, but at least, maybe not as hard as it seems. But then they do play the Bills at home. That's obviously going to be the toughest matchup of the season for them, even though they are the home team. Which helps, but, you're playing the best team in the NFL. So that's definitely the hardest game out of that 4-game stretch right there. And then they even play the Niners the week after that. So definitely a tough schedule for them coming up. But, if you can maybe, get maybe the Tampa game or the Colts game, whatever, you can kind of get 2 wins right there, then maybe you're set up pretty well. But yeah, that was still a really good game Thursday night. Like I said, on paper, that's probably one of the best Thursday night games of the season. I don't know all the ones the rest of the season. I don't know them off the top of my head, but that's definitely one of the better ones. We'll see. But moving to the 1 o'clock games, I guess we'll start with the comebacks. Why not? First, I'll talk Jets-Browns. This game, I was actually watching this game. It was 30-17 with with like a minute 40 left, I think it was. A minute 55. I thought it was over, obviously. And just one quick thing. People are saying that Nick Chubb shouldn't have scored that touchdown. He should have slid down. I guess you could say that, but, at the same time, are you expecting your defense to give up a 66-yard touchdown 30 seconds later, and then they get the onside kick and then go down and get a 15-yard touchdown? Like, I don't think he's thinking all that through with a minute 55 seconds left for the game to be over, and it's 30-17. It's not like they needed a touchdown and then a field goal or something. Like, they needed 2 touchdowns to win that game. So I don't really blame him for that. I don't think any running back would have slid down in that situation, to be honest. So I'm not going to go on that and say that. I saw a lot of people saying that on Twitter and social media and stuff. I don't think you could blame him at all. I mean, your defense let a guy wide open on the 66-yard touchdown. I mean, no one was even close to him, so I don't know how you're not playing your guys all the way back. Or obviously it was clearly a miscommunication, but that's on your defense right there. That can't happen. It was 30 seconds later. It wasn't like it was a minute later, so there's even less time. No, it was basically I think it was the first or second play of that drive after the Nick Chubb touchdown, and then the onside kick, which was bizarre. I mean, it was a good kick, but like Amari Cooper was there. It almost looked like he was trying to just hit it out of bounds or something, or he was waiting so long. I don't know what he was doing. The guy came crashing into him. It luckily stayed in. It easily could have bounced out of bounds or went somewhere else. But it basically just sat right there. They got it, and then, like I said, they went down and got another touchdown to win the game. So that's a terrible loss for the Browns because you start 2-0. Again, you don't have Watson for the first 12 games of the season. He won't be back till week 14 because they have a bye in there. So you don't start 2-0 against the Jets, who are one of the worst teams, and you had a 30-17 lead at home. That's huge. That can mean a lot because you need all the wins you can get before Watson can go back. You at least got to be 500, but really you got to be maybe a game or two above 500. And a loss like that can kill that because they play the Chargers in these. I'm just looking at the games until Watson comes back. They play the Chargers, they play the Ravens, they play the Bengals, they play the Dolphins, the Bills, the Bucks. Those are games that they could easily lose, if not, most of them. So you got to win the games that you're supposed to win against the Jets. They play the Falcons, even the Patriots. It's not like they should guarantee to win, but that's definitely an easier game than the ones that you'll be facing after that. So, if you start 2-0, you play the Steelers this Thursday night. Again, that's a game you could easily win as well. That could go either way, but you're the home team, so that should help. Maybe you're 3-0. You play the Falcons. That's not a good team. You could maybe be 4-0. Even if you lose against the Steelers, you could be 3-1. It's just like, it's just different. You got to win that game. Because, again, the Steelers is like a 50-50 game, to be honest. The Jets, you should have won that game. And obviously, when you're up 30-17, you're supposed to win that game. So that could be detrimental to them possibly making a playoff spot until Watson comes back. Because Brissett's obviously not, he's an okay quarterback, but, he's not going to lead your team to victories. They're going to win from the running game. And, you would think their defense, even though, again, I guess they only let up 17 points until the last minute 55, but yeah, that definitely wasn't a good look for the Browns. In terms of the Jets, I guess it's a good win to have. Obviously, they just need some sort of positivity and some sort of, things of going along this season, in the right direction, trending the right way. So I guess that was good. I mean, it was Flacco, it wasn't Wilson. You probably would have hoped that it was your potential franchise quarterback who is the one leading that comeback and winning that game. But he won't be back for, I guess they said he's out at least until week 4, right? So maybe week 4, week 5 he'll be back, but we'll see. The other game, I guess we'll go Dolphins-Ravens now. Like I said, this was the game I was really interested to watch, potentially even my most excited game for this week, and it definitely lived up. At one point, like I said, it looked like it was going to be a blowout. It was 35-14 late into that game. It was 35-14 with 12 minutes and 12 seconds left in the fourth quarter. That was when the Dolphins got their touchdown to go to 35-21. So, yeah, it looked like a blowout the whole game. At first, it was close, but, Tua had 2 picks. One was kind of just like a batted ball that they somehow caught. I don't even know how. The other one was he kind of just threw it up to Waddle, and it was down the sideline. The guy just picked it. But he bounced back from those hugely. He threw 4 touchdowns in the last 12 minutes of that game. Played really well, made good throws when he had to, hit 2 bombs to Tyreek. A little bit underthrown, but still he made the throws when he had to. And yeah, they won the game. A huge steal on the road for them. Like I said, the Ravens should have been 2-0. They had that game in the bag. Lamar was playing great. He was running the ball amazingly, throwing the ball really well. The defense was playing pretty good for Baltimore. So that's definitely a bad loss for them, especially with the Browns losing, the Steelers losing, and the Bengals losing. The Ravens win that game. They're 2-0. Everyone else is at best 1-1, and then the Bengals are 0-2. That's huge for them because assuming the Bengals can at least right the ship a little bit, you would think that it would be them in Baltimore for that division. So, if you start 2-0, you're already 2 games up on them. That's a huge advantage to have, especially while they're still trying to figure things out. And who knows? Maybe they don't. Maybe last year, whatever happened kind of was fluky. I don't personally see that. I think they still have a good team. I think it's just not everything's working right now. So you would think that would, get better. You would assume week 3 because that's when you need it. You can't start 0-3 for that team. But that being 2-0 against them when they're 0-2, that's a huge advantage to have. And the fact that they're not going to have that now is pretty big. So that's definitely something that you don't want. And they play the Patriots this week, but then they play the Bills the next week, and then they play the Bengals. So a lot of stuff could change. I mean, you probably should beat the Patriots, but you're probably going to lose to the Bills. I mean, maybe not. Who knows? But you could have been 3-1. You potentially could be 2-2 going into that matchup against the Bengals, which they could be 2-2 going into that matchup as well. So big loss for them. Like I said, I'm not going to blame Lamar or anything. I think the defense. Honestly, I guess there's always blame when a team chokes a lead like that. But I just think the Dolphins just executed really well down the stretch. I mean, Waddle and Hill combined for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. They were killing them with speed towards the end. I mean, I guess you could say on the 2 Tyreek touchdowns, what were they doing in coverage? He was The second one, he was wide open. The first one, he just beat the secondary down the field. That's just what he does, his speed. But the second one was just clearly a miscommunication or a lapse in scheme or formation. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was just wide open down the left sideline. You couldn't have missed him. He probably had 10, 15 yards on anyone around him. But yeah, the Dolphins, like I said before, I mean, they're exciting. I think if Tua can just play good enough, and I think in McDaniel's offense, that's kind of like a Shanahan offense. Obviously, that's where he came from. You just, as long as you do what you have to do and you make the throws that you're supposed to make, you're going to be a good offense. You're going to put up good stats as a quarterback. So if you can just stay away from interceptions, maybe use his legs a little bit more, I think that team could be really good, to be honest. Not, can they compete for, an AFC championship? I don't know about that because I just don't know if Tua is that good. And I think there are for sure better teams in the conference. I think Baltimore is better, Buffalo's better, Kansas City's better, LA's better. So there's definitely a lot of teams that are better, but at the same time, they're kind of a dangerous teams. If Tua could play well with that speed on the outside and the defense that's at least good enough and sometimes could be really good, that's a threat to a lot of teams come playoff time. So that's gonna be, you got to watch the Dolphins this year for sure. They're gonna be. It looks like they are going to be. I think it looks like now they might make that playoff spot, but they really got to continue this early season. I think the early season's huge for them. If they could start 4-1. I think that's huge for them down the stretch, especially they got two teams in their division that they can beat 4 times. That's wins right there. All you need is wins to get 10, 11 wins. I think they'll probably make the playoffs with that. But the third comeback game of the week was Raiders-Cardinals. Now this was one of my 5 picks. Raiders -5.5. Honestly, it was I said it was like probably the game I was most confident in. I think I'd said it was the most confident game I had for the week, and it felt like it. I mean, could you blame me for what happened in that game up until the point where the Cardinals started coming back? I mean, the score was 20-0, and with 6 minutes and 30 seconds, or 6 minutes and 3 seconds left in the third quarter, it was 20-0. It looked like such an empty game. I mean, the Raiders went up early, got some early touchdowns with Adams and Waller. The Cardinals just couldn't do anything offensively, and the Raiders' defense isn't even that good. But like I've been saying, I don't think the Cardinals are a good team, and unless Murray, which again it did happen in this game, unless he puts the entire team on his back and can make these video game plays and gadget plays and just freakish athletic kind of things that he was doing, but you can't do every single game, then they're not going to win games. So he somehow put it all together in this one. Again, in the second half, not nowhere close in the first half. It looked awful, but they got stops defensively when they needed to, and they made plays offensively. Really, just Murray making plays that led them back in this game, and they tied it 23-23 with 0 seconds on the clock with a Murray touchdown run, which. If you saw his 2-point conversion, you would have seen that, it was, I think they timed it. It was like 20 seconds. He had the ball just running around. I think he ran back to like the 20, 25 yard line, somehow, sneaked his way in there. Then he got the touchdown run with 0 seconds left. Go to OT. Cardinals get the ball first. They had the punt. Raiders get the ball, and then they fumble. They get it back, and then they fumble again. It was Renfro twice, actually. Fumble the second time, and then it's a fumble recovery for a touchdown for the Cardinals. And obviously, the game's over then. So, just a huge win for the Cardinals. If you do think that they have a chance to possibly compete for anything this year, again, weaker NFC, maybe obviously they're thinking they could sneak into the playoffs. I don't. I still think they're a bad team. They probably should have lost this game in my mind. So. I think it saves Kingsbury at least for another couple of games. I don't think he would have got fired after this game, but if they start 0-4, I think he would have been fired. To be honest, I think it would have been that early. He's not a good coach. He always starts good at the beginning of seasons and always ends bad, but I think he would have just been bad the entire year this year. So I guess that kind of saves him possibly for a couple more games. Murray, I guess it kind of puts some haters down too as well, but. I know he's not working with a ton around him, but I don't see it from him. Again, unless he's making these plays every single game, which isn't possible. they're not going to win games. So I just think I think it just adds a win to their end of the season win tally that wouldn't have been there. For the Raiders, though, how do you lose this game? I mean, you're already 0-1. Okay, you played the Chargers in LA. Tough game, obviously. You lose. But you're at home here against the Cardinals, who just got blown out by Kansas City. You're blowing them out 20-0 for more than half the game. You can't lose this game. You can't start 0-2. Now your division, you're 0-2. You're last in that division. I think they're more talented than Denver. I think Denver's just gotten obviously an easy first two games, which they barely won, and obviously they lost by 1 point to Seattle, but that was just an embarrassing loss as well. So for the Raiders to be 0-2 and lose this game, that's a lot of questions on Derek Carr, on Josh McDaniels. They only, Devontae Adams had 2 catches in this game, which seems, I know you're up 20-0, but how does he have 2 catches in a game like this? Just, a lot of things wrong with that team. The defense hasn't played amazing so far. Not like the guys they brought in haven't really done much. Like Chandler Jones has 0 sacks, which what I said was Chandler Jones, he probably has 3 games a year where he gets like 3 sacks in each game, and then the rest of the games he'll combine for like 3 sacks the rest of the year. Like, that's just what he does. He has a couple of huge games, and then he'll go weeks without doing anything. You won't even notice he's on the field. So I think that's what they're experiencing right now, is that he's just done nothing so far in these first 2 games. And maybe next week, maybe the week after that, whatever week it is, he'll have a week where he gets like 4 sacks, and you'll think he's like the best pass rusher. But I'm telling you, then he'll go another 3 or 4 weeks with not even coming close to a sack. But yeah, the Raiders, you can't lose that game. You just can't. Since, like I said, to be 0-2 right now in that division, you at least had to be 1-1. It gave you a shot because you're better than Denver. Who knows? You could at least fight with the Chargers or whatever, even though they're better. You could at least fight with them maybe a little bit. But it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough uphill for them, I think. We'll look at their schedule. They go against the Titans, who have been awful as well. But it's in Tennessee. Tennessee. So who knows? Maybe Henry hasn't had a big game yet. Maybe he has a big one against the Raiders. Then they go Broncos Chiefs. So 2 in-division games. Those are huge games right there. You have to win next week. You have to at least be 1-2 going into those 2 division games. But we'll see. I don't know if that will happen. But they're too talented not to win these games. They're not. Are they one of the most talented teams? No, but they have too much talent offensively with Carr, Jacobs, Adams, Renfro, and Waller, and a decent O-line to not be moving the ball more efficiently down the field. That's just me. I mean, you have Devontae Adams. I mean, having a guy like that, like you see, I know the Rams, the schemes that they do with McVay and everything, but when you have just a guy who can get open basically anytime he wants, like Kupp or Diggs in Buffalo, like you should be able to move the ball down the field, because that guy's rather attracting 2, or he's just getting open and he's getting the ball. So I think that's got to be a thing that Derek Carr has to realize, is that like you have arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, so you should maybe throw him the ball a little bit more, or go up the seam with Darren Waller, or hit Renfro in the flat and let him make a play. I think their offense should be a lot more explosive and a lot better than it is through the first 2 games of this season. Because even though they were up 20-3 early, it was kind of an ugly 20-0. So it wasn't like the offense was like moving down the field just putting up points. It was kind of ugly, to be honest. And I think they definitely have questions there in Vegas going forward. But those are the 3 comeback games of the week. In terms of that, I guess I'll talk about the Bucs and the Saints. So this game was this 1:00 window on Sunday. It was pretty ugly game. The Bucs did win 20-10. I think I mentioned it earlier, but Mike Evans got suspended. He got ejected in this game, and now got suspended a game. He's appealing it. I think he'll probably still be suspended a game, but they did finally. Brady beat the Saints since he's been to Tampa in the regular season. He's beat them in the playoffs, but he was 0-4 against them, and it was 0-4 that was pretty ugly. He wasn't scoring points, a lot of turnovers, a lot of frustration. They got blown out, I think, in like 2 of those games. So it was just a really bad 0-4. It wasn't like he lost tough games, close games, high scoring games. They just got beat. It was just like he wasn't anywhere close to the quarterback that he was against the Saints whenever he played them. And even in this one, he really didn't look that good. He made one good throw, which finally got the touchdown to get things going in this game. I believe it was 3-3 for a lot of this game, and then they finally got a touchdown. It was 3-3 with 6 minutes and 44 seconds left in the third quarter, and then finally with 7 minutes and 40 seconds left, they finally got the touchdown, 28 yards from Brady to at least get things moving a little bit, just a little bit. And then they got helped out. The Saints, they kept turning the ball over. Winston had 3 picks. One was for a pick 6 that made it 20-3. So obviously the game was over at that point. So again, the Bucs it wasn't a pretty game. They didn't look that good, to be honest. I guess you could say the defense looked good, which they do have a good defense. But the offense still wasn't there. Now again, no Julio, no Godwin. I'm not sure when Evans got kicked out, but I think it was like halfway through the game or so, or maybe even a little bit before that. So I guess you were missing him for half the game. But yeah, I think next week, like I said, is kind of a question mark because assuming Evans' suspension holds, he won't play. Doesn't look like Godwin's going to play, and it doesn't look like Julio's going to play, and they play the Packers. So if you're going to have no offensive weapons, like you need Fournette to be really good, but the problem is that the Packers got a good defense. I think maybe you could exploit them a little bit in the run game, but if they kind of know that you have no weapons on the outside, like no one to scare them, and again, they do have a good secondary, like they could put an extra guy in the box and just focus on the run. So I think that's gonna be a tough game for Tampa. They are home, and the Packers haven't looked amazing, so far. They obviously got destroyed by the Vikings, and then they beat the Bears pretty handily, but it wasn't like it was kind of like a little chunky kind of game. It wasn't totally exciting and so smooth, and they kind of just came out and destroyed them. It kind of had to take a little time to get going. They're definitely a run team, I would say now, than a passing team. They just don't have the weapons on the outside, and they rely on Jones and Dillon to just kind of carry that load. To really push them forward and get them down the field is running the ball, and they're good at it. I mean, they should do that. It's just kind of a shame when you have a guy like Rodgers and you're more running the ball than passing the ball. But if it's working, it's working. Are you going to complain with getting down the field and scoring points if it's running versus passing? So I think that's going to be a good matchup next week. I think it'll be a test. Like I said, it's maybe a little unfair to Brady. I mean, his offensive line is demolished with injuries. With the guys that already left and the guys who are supposed to replace those guys, the guys who are supposed to replace them are getting injured. So, and like I said, they have no one on the outside. It's going to look like none of their top 3 targets will be playing on Sunday next week. So, there's that game that happened. I think we could talk about I think we'll talk about the Monday night games, to be honest, because maybe they're just fresh in my mind, so that's why I want to talk about them. But the Bills and the Titans, 41-7, the Bills blew them out. I watched this whole game. Like I said, in terms of just pure entertainment and wanting to see amazing plays, this was a great game to watch. Just in terms of that, if you didn't care about being a blowout or whatever, then this was a great game to watch because the Bills, every single time they had the ball, some amazing play was happening. Josh Allen is escaping defenders, hurdling over guys for first downs. He's hitting guys with bullets down the middle or on the sideline or in the end zone. He's throwing 50-yard bombs to Stephon Diggs. Like, he's on target with every single guy. He's on the same exact page. He knows exactly where that guy's going to be. He had one bad throw, at least from what I remember throughout the game, and it was a third down, and he was rolling out to his left, and that was the play. He was supposed to roll out to his left on a play action and hit a guy who was in motion coming, with him on the left side, and he just like threw it into the dirt. It was like weird because you wouldn't really expect like an elite quarterback like that to just like miss a throw like that, but that was like the only throw that he missed. And other than that, he was like perfect. I mean, I'll tell you his stats, but he was 26 of 38, 317, 4 touchdowns. I mean, he only had to run the ball one time, too. I mean, like, that's exactly what you want. He can run the ball when he wants, and if you need him to do that, he'll do it, but you'd love for him just to be in the pocket, comfortable, no one really in his face. He only got sacked one time, and just finding people. It's all over the field. That's exactly what you want him to do, like in a perfect world. And again, Diggs, it's hard not to have him in the top three wide receiver conversation. I think he is, to be honest. I think it's Kupp, Adams, and Diggs in terms of just three best wide receivers in the league. I mean, 12 catches, 148 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. He was just, this Titans secondary had no chance. And that was without Gabe Davis as well, so they could have doubled him if they wanted to. And I don't even know even if they did, it was not a good job, clearly. But the Bills are a machine. They're gonna steamroll just about every single team they play. I would be surprised. I'd say at minimum they win 13 games, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win 14. So yeah, they're gonna, like I said, they're my Super Bowl pick in terms of representing the AFC, but then just winning the Super Bowl, they're my pick. And I still believe in that wholeheartedly. So again, just in terms of entertainment value, that was a great game to watch. The other Monday night game was Vikings-Eagles. This one I hoped it was going to be a closer game. Once you kind of saw the Bills were pulling away, you kind of just knew that game was over. And like I said, with a staggered time, the Eagles game was kind of still, in the first quarter and stuff like that. So it was still close, and you could, hopefully, you were hoping that would be a good game and a exciting game. But like I said, this game was kind of the same as the Bills game, just not as dominant. But yeah, the Eagles, I mean, obviously being a Cowboys fan, I hate saying it, but yeah, the Eagles are for sure a good team. The offense that they have is dynamic. It's unpredictable because you could run the ball with Hurts, you could run it with Sanders, you could throw it to Brown or Devonta Smith. Like, they have a lot of weapons and a lot of different ways of getting those weapons the ball. And I think that's exactly what you want in the NFL. You could have the best quarterback in the NFL, but if you're not unpredictable and you're not dynamic and you can't get your guys the ball in different ways that can throw the defense off, teams can at least come up with something to try and stop you. And again, Hurts is not one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he's so mobile and so unpredictable that you don't know what he's going to do and you don't know what the offense is going to do. And the defense is solid. It's definitely solid against the Vikings team that can be explosive at times with Cousins and Cook and Jefferson. That's a pretty solid trio, I would say. If you go through every single team, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, that's pretty up there, to be honest, if you were to look at it. So to hold that team to 7 points, which came early in the second quarter, is pretty impressive. And yeah, the Eagles team, they're 2-0 already. I think a lot of people are maybe getting a little overhyped with them. Are they a good team? Yeah, but we have to see how they play against the top teams. They've played the Lions so far, who they barely beat, and they played the Vikings. Let me see them against the Rams, even the Bucks, the Packers, even some AFC teams as well. But just in terms of the NFC, let me see them play the Niners. Let me see them play those teams and see how they play and how their style matches up, and if Hurts can match up with one of these elite quarterbacks, and then I'll make a final judgment. But are they one of the better teams in the NFC? Yeah, they are. They definitely are. But so if you're an Eagles fan, I think you have to be excited and you have to be hoping. You're probably looking at winning this division and making the playoffs, and then who knows from there. But I just want to see them play one of the top teams before I make a final opinion on them. But yeah, definitely have to be excited if you're a fan of the Eagles. But in terms of all the other games, I don't think I really need to touch on all of them. I guess I'll just go through my picks. I've kind of said them a little bit, but Colts. I had the Colts, Jaguars, -4 Indianapolis. Like I said, that wasn't even close. Pats, Steelers, +2 Pittsburgh. They lost by 3. I thought. I know they didn't have TJ Watt, but they just look terrible, to be honest. I think Pickett's going to get in there a little bit sooner than they probably wanted to. They probably still wanted Trubisky to go at least 6, 7, 8 weeks, and then we'll see. But if he continues to play like this and the offense continues to look, just hasn't looked bad, but it also hasn't looked good, then you probably have to make a change sometime soon. Again, we'll see maybe Thursday night. That's a quick turnaround, so maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, I don't know. But obviously that didn't hit as well. Seahawks, Niners, -8.5 San Francisco. That hit. I guess the one thing I'll touch on in this game is Trey Lance. He's out for the season. He broke his They said his fibula and he has torn ligaments. So, obviously after the season, we'll see what time he even comes back next year. But uh, you got to be pretty glad you didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. If they traded Jimmy Garoppolo to the Browns or the Panthers or the Seahawks, whatever other team throughout this offseason, they'd be in a terrible spot. They'd have no one to come in and fill in as a starting quarterback with a Super Bowl caliber roster on their that they have. And it'd be another kind of lost year for San Francisco. But the fact that Jimmy G is there, he just led you to an NFC Championship game last year, and he gets step right in. You could just implement the offense. Now, obviously, they've already implemented this offense for Lance, but everyone on that team basically knows the offense because all of them were there with all those years with Jimmy G and even just last year. So put that offense back into place. He's a pro, he's a pro quarterback. He's a pro's pro. Like, he can make the plays he can make plays. There's certain throws he can't make. There's certain things he can't do, but he can do a lot of things. He could be really valuable to a team. And you still have one of the top defenses. You still have Debo. Kittle hasn't even played a game yet. I think he'll be back for week 3, maybe week 4, but I think you have to, it sucks that you lost Lance as your quarterback, and I thought as the weeks went on, he'd get better and better and better. And unfortunately, we won't be able to see that. But I think you have to be pretty happy with having Garoppolo as being your quarterback. I mean, he's led you to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game. That's pretty good to ask for as a backup quarterback. I mean, my team lost their quarterback, not for the season, but and even though we did win with him, it's a guy who was drafted 5-6 years ago. Has been a backup his whole career. Practice squad guy. I mean, imagine having Jimmy Garoppolo to step in as your team's backup quarterback. I mean, I'd feel pretty good about that too. But they still did cover. They won 27-20 or 27-7. So obviously 8.5 covered. Texans Broncos. I had Broncos -10. I mean, like I said, even though they're 1-1, they should probably be 0-2 because of how bad they played against bad teams. They played the Seahawks and Texans. And they couldn't even beat the Seahawks, and they barely beat the Texans, 16-9 at home. So that obviously didn't hit, which I thought this would be the game, even though it was only the second game of the season. You have the weapons offensively. Russell Wilson's first home game, this kind of seemed like the time. And you're playing the Texans, another bad team. This seemed like the time to, put some points up. The fact that they can only score 16 points, and that came pretty late in the game to get that touchdown is just really embarrassing, to be honest. And then Cardinals, Raiders, like I said, I'd -5.5 Las Vegas. Looked like a lock. I was like, all right, at worst I'll go 2-3 because I knew at that point the Niners were gonna win by 8.5. Still maybe hope that Denver would win by 10, but I was like, at worst I'm going 2-3 with the Raiders winning. I mean, that obviously did not go the way I wanted it to. So I was honestly hoping for overtime once it got to that point, because I was like, if they just score a touchdown, then they win by 6, then I get it. But that again didn't happen. So I go 1-4 on the week. I'm 4-6 in total. So after a decent first week, obviously a really bad second week. I don't even think I went 1-4 last year. Maybe one time I did, but definitely I never went 0-5 last year. I don't plan on going 0-5, but already a 1-4 early in the season. Definitely need a 4-1 or even a 5-0 for next week. But thank you for listening, and I'll be back I'll be back in a couple of days. Looking forward to week 3.